You put food in the mouth. This is where all digestion begins. This is where both mechanical and chemical digestion begins. Not chemical for everybody. Not chemical for everybody. But mechanical, yeah. This is where we have teeth. This is where we're mashing stuff down. Here is a picture of what the mouth looks like. Pretty fantastic. A lot of parts and pieces there. When you really break it down, there's a tongue. I know this is crazy stuff we're talking about here, but there's a tongue there, there's teeth in there, and that's going to be the two major components that are causing that mechanical digestion. Vast number of teeth that masticate, that just means to chew. Tongue helps to orientate and keep that food smashed in between your teeth so you can smash it up. And then when you're ready, it manipulates it and throws it back towards the back of the mouth. The back of the mouth is right here. That's called the oropharynx. The pharynx is just a structure that is shared, and you can see it's right here. I'll kind of highlight it right here. This is the oropharynx right through here. I'm sorry, the pharynx right through here. You can see it encompasses the nasopharynx, the laryngopharynx. I'm just describing it here. I don't think I'm going to ask a vast number of questions, maybe one. And if it is, it's going to be on this dude right here, because this is the only part that's really going to be utilized under normal circumstances. Okay. As you chew that food down and that tongue directs it to the back of the throat, this is where it's sending it to, the oropharynx. Okay. And then the oropharynx down to the laryngopharynx, but it's really there to just ensure that we get food into the into the esophagus and not the trachea. The trachea goes to the lungs. Okay, this goes to the lungs, and this is what goes to the stomach. For those that don't know. Okay. And obviously, we don't want it to go into the lungs. Okay. Teeth, tongues, fantastic. But there is a major component here. Salivary glands. There's also, I guess, some other things that we're not going to really get into. I mean, there's a ton of muscles here associated. There's really only 4 major muscles of mastication, of chewing. I'm not going to ask it, but you know, the temporalis, just bite down. If you bite down, you can kind of feel that bulge out there by your temples. That's the temporalis muscle. It kind of sits right through here on your temple. It's one of the primary muscles of chewing. The masseter muscle is right here. So when you bite down, you feel that bulge right there on the side of your jaw. That's this muscle right here. Okay. Your masseter muscle. And then you have some muscles that are deep. You can only really palpate them if you got some small hands, you can stick your hands kind of the back part of your oral cavity there. You can feel the medial and lateral pterygoid muscles. They attach there around the sphenoid bone, which is pretty deep there within the facial region. And so you don't really deal with them unless you have really, really, really small hands. And have trigger point work, done with them and whatnot. So, but though there are some muscles that are associated with this chewing process, we just don't go over it here. What we do have are salivary glands, though. Salivary glands, as you can kind of see, there are 3 of them. Here's the parotid one. It sits right here on the outside. Okay. This one that sits right here, very most laterally. That's right here. The parotid gland, as you can kind of see right here, here's its duct. It produces the enzymes in here and sends it through a duct and then dumps it into the oral cavity here. It It dumps out by around that second molar. So whenever you go to the dentist and they're always, it seems like they're picking a little bit more at some of those back molars there. If you are somebody who, flosses and brushes, twice a day at least, and you don't have a big buildup, you normally do have a buildup around that second molar just because of that duct and how it's emptying out right on it. So there's usually a buildup there. Just some fun FYI knowledge. You have another gland kind of right here. This is the submandibular gland. The mandible is this bone right here. It's the movable bone in your face, the only one you have, the only one that's movable anyway. So we have this bone right here, and just right underneath it, right up in there, you have a gland, and that's the submandibular gland. You also have this one right here. This is the sublingual gland. Sub means below, lingual means tongue. So this one's just right underneath the tongue there. It's on the floor of the mouth. You don't really see it a whole hell of a lot. It's covered in soft tissue. But these are your three salivary glands. Okay? These three collectively secrete three things: lysozyme, salivary amylase, and a lingual lipase gets secreted as well. A component that is not listed on here, water. Okay, there is a watery kind of component to all of these as well, to all of these salivary glands being secreted as well. I'm not going to get into the water component. Okay, I'll make a brief mention of it, I think maybe on the next slide, but I'm not going to get into the water component here, except for one thing. Of the saliva, there is lysozyme in it. Lysozyme is a bactericidal agent. All it does is help to keep some bacteria at bay. So it doesn't allow a huge expansion, but brushing your teeth is going to be effective at keeping bacteria at bay. Don't rely on lysozyme. Salivary amylase, two things. Whenever you see ASE on the end, that tells you it's an enzyme. And the word in front of it tells you where it comes from. We'll have salivary amylase, we'll have pancreatic amylase, we'll have intestinal amylase. Amylase, again, ASE, it's the enzyme. The word in front of it tells you who secretes it. So if I asked what secretion comes from an intestinal cell, and your choices are salivary amylase, intestinal amylase, or pancreatic amylase. Intestinal amylase would be a secretion from an intestinal cell. Okay, so the word in front tells you where it's coming from. Salivary amylase tells you it's coming from the salivary glands. And it is an amylase. It begins carbohydrate digestion, starch. And it's just an initiation. Okay? Food doesn't stick around a whole hell of a long time here in the mouth to really have a whole lot of digestion breakdown occur. Lingual lipase, lingual again means tongue. Okay. Lipase, ASE, enzyme. Okay. LIP, lipid, fat. So this helps to begin fat digestion. Okay. Some interesting things about lingual lipase: it is inactive. As food is in your mouth, okay, if I have a fat component to this food that I've put in my mouth and I'm chewing, lingual lipase gets secreted. It is inactive. Okay, so lipid breakdown doesn't really happen here in the mouth. Lingual lipase mixes with the acid content of the stomach, and then it becomes active. Okay, so lingual lipase gets secreted here, but it doesn't do a whole hell of a lot until it gets into the stomach. Another major component when it comes to eating, you eat what you like. You eat what tastes good. What tastes good to you? Well, it's based on your 5 basic senses of taste. And this is where the watery medium of saliva comes in. Okay. The chemicals that are within food dissolve within the fluid medium, and then we perceive that. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami. Okay. You pick up the various different chemicals in the foods that have these. Okay. And after break, I'll give you an example of kind of what that looks like. Okay. Because it's a whole crazy mechanism. So I won't ask about it on the exam. It's kind of interesting there, how your body interprets or how you interpret sweet. Okay. What is actually picking it up? How do you know it's sweet? How do you know it's sour? Okay. Well, you learn those. Okay. But it's the chemicals within the food. Okay, so if it has certain sequence of chemicals within it, we have different taste buds to pick all that information up. It's kind of interesting. Connected with your sense of taste is the sense of smell. There are no more 2 different types of special senses that are connected more than these 2. They influence one another. Okay. The sense of smell is olfaction, and it contributes a lot to our ability to taste food. If you've ever had, a runny nose, stuffy nose, swollen nose, ever have something like that, and you've eaten, food just doesn't taste as robust. Okay. Because a lot of the pathways where we interpret this information, both of them enhance both of those regions. So it's kind of interesting there. We have about 350 olfactory receptor types that work in a various number of combinations to allow us to have upwards of 10,000 different odors that we can register and sense. So it's pretty interesting. And there's a high degree of turnover here when it comes to these 2 types of senses, especially this one. They change dramatically over the course of your lifetime. They do research all the time with these 2 senses right here to figure out why they change. The stuff that may be appeasing for you at one point in your life may make you sick to your stomach later, and you don't want to eat that food. You see it a lot with women. You see a lot with men as well, but women more so because of the changes that occur during pregnancy. And you see a ton of changes in their sense of smell and what they find as appealing and not appealing during the process, and even afterwards as well. Some of their senses of smell stay changed even after the pregnancy, after they've gotten rid of the creature inside. Some terms here, you would see these probably as a multiple choice type question potentially. And nausea, inability to detect odors, eusia, diminished ability to taste. A in front, again, loss, inability. A in front means without the ability to detect odors, without the ability to taste. Okay. And again, if the sense of smell is altered, our sense of taste is going to be altered as well.